Hello and welcome to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast number 66. This week we're looking at another of the classic series Aliens, though this one has made the crossover into New Who. This week it's the turn of the Ice Warriors.
Ice Warriors, an apt description.
And we have your feedback on the beginning of the end for New Era Doctor Who.
Come here, you scrumptious little beauty. A box?
Doctor, what is it?
I've got mail.
This week's feedback comes from a post I put up on the Facebook page recently, with a link to an article on the Doctor Who TV website. This article appears to claim that Season 8 will finish with a two-part story, and that the series will only be 13 episodes in total. That's to say 12 episodes in the main series, and episode 13 would be the Christmas special. So playing devil's advocate, I suggested on the post that this reduction of episodes was the beginning of the end for Doctor Who on television once again. Barry Ricks responded like this: "Cost-cutting again. Another split series or cut an episode, Mr. Moffat." Well, time will tell on that, Barry, I guess, but I have to say in the first instance those were my thoughts too. Andrew Marmot said this: "I don't think it is the beginning of the end. I wonder if it's just a statement of reality. But firstly, let's tackle the two-part story issue. I have before waxed lyrical about story being king. There have been some two-part episodes that haven't had enough story in them to justify them being two parts. For example, Daleks Take Manhattan and Evolution of the Daleks, The End of Time Parts 1 and 2, and The Rebel Flesh and The Almost People. These two-parters had ideas that were too thinly stretched to cover the runtime of 2 episodes. In fact, The End of Time all felt like filler until the showdown with the Time Lords. I can't recall any griping that Season 7 had no two-parters, and despite the split in the middle, those turned out to make a pretty good season. Even The Rings of Akatan is better than I remembered, some of Murray Gold's best work. Why 1 episode less? Well, I would imagine that the production costs on Doctor Who have continued to rise, but the budget hasn't risen at the same rate. So, instead of producing a bottle show, which for Doctor Who is somewhat difficult, they don't have a massive amount of sets beyond the TARDIS console room, unlike Star Trek, for example. You end up then with 1 less episode, but hopefully all of a good quality, or at least ambition." Thanks for that, Andrew, and I have to say I really hope you're right. This fan isn't ready to get by without new televised Doctor Who just yet.
Do you have a name? Or do we also have to resort to the banality of labels?
The Ice Warriors are a race of reptilian-like humanoids. They were originally created by Brian Hales, first appearing in the 1967 story The Ice Warriors, where they encountered the Second Doctor, Jamie and Victoria. The Ice Warriors themselves originate from Mars, which within the series' narrative is a dying world. Their early appearances show them as attempting to conquer the Earth and escape their home planet as early as Earth's Ice Age. A frozen group are discovered by an Earth scientific team who dub them Ice Warriors in that first appearance. Despite that not being the name of their species, an Ice Lord later refers to his soldiers as Ice Warriors in the 1974 story The Monster of Peladon. Although originally appearing as villains, subsequent appearances have shown Ice Warriors that have renounced violence and even ally themselves with the Doctor. Serials were planned for both 1986 and 1990 that were to have featured the Ice Warriors. Mission to Magnus featuring the 6th Doctor and the villainous Syl, and Ice Time featuring the 7th Doctor. In both instances, however, the series was placed on a hiatus, and the serials themselves were scrapped. However, Mission to Magnus was novelised by Target, then adapted for audio by Big Finish, with Ice Time being revised and released as the audio Thin Ice. The Ice Warriors have also featured in flashback and cameo appearances, in addition to appearing frequently in spin-off media such as novels and audios. Their most recent outing, of course, being Series 7 of the revived series in the episode Cold War.
This is our planet. Be mindful of who the aliens are.
The 4th season of Doctor Who had ended with Evil of the Daleks, a serial intended to retire the Daleks from the series due to their creator Terry Nation aiming to produce a spin-off in America. The production office was keen to find a new recurring monster to be used instead of the now retiring Daleks and alongside the popular Cybermen. Brian Hales was approached to create a suitable monster that could be used as a new recurring antagonist for the Doctor. Hales drew from both newspaper reports of a baby mammoth being found in 1900 in the Siberian ice and his interest in Mars to create this new monster. James Chapman suggests that director Derek Martinus drew from the film The Thing from Another World in realising Hales' scripts, particularly the concept of an alien frozen in ice near an isolated scientific base. Hales had envisaged the Ice Warriors being cybernetic creatures, but designer Martin Bowe, fearing comparisons with the already established Cybermen, instead designed costumes with vaguely reptilian features. The Ice Warriors, first appearing in 1967's The Ice Warriors story, was seen as a success and brought back in 1969 for a second serial. Peter Bryant, the producer of Doctor Who by 1969, also felt that a second appearance might better justify the expensive Ice Warrior costumes employed in their debut serial. Martin Bowe was the costume designer for the Ice Warriors and was responsible for the decision to make them reptilian humanoids. As a costume designer, Bowe preferred to work with new materials, with Piers D. Britton and Graham Slate noting that in designing the look of the monsters, Bowe crafted the armour from fiberglass. Slate further comments that the sculpting of the armour is reflective of crocodile skin, thus suggesting their reptilian nature. Actors like Bernard Bresslaw, who played the Ice Warrior Varga in the very first appearance, used a sibilant whisper to demonstrate both the reptilian qualities of the monsters, as well as to suggest that the Martian atmosphere is completely different from that of Earth. The hissing voice is also believed to have been developed by Bresslaw. The Ice Warriors have sonic weaponry built into their wrists. The Seeds of Death introduces an officer caste, often referred to as Ice Lords. They are less armoured than their soldier counterparts and lack their mounted sonic weaponry. Common to both the Ice Warriors and the Ice Lords, however, are claw-like gloves, sometimes referred to as Lego hands, named after their similarity to a Lego minifigure's hand. However, for the return of the Ice Warriors in 2013's Cold War, the claw became a three-fingered hand, similar to the Sontarans.
Our action was forced upon us. It was not excessive.
For the return of the Ice Warriors in Cold War, Neil Gorton chose to make the creatures appear beefier and stronger, designing the Ice Warrior armour to resemble plating. To create the costumes, flexible urethane rubber was used, which was far more flexible and comfortable than fiberglass. Mark Gatiss says that he insisted on remaining true to the original Ice Warrior design for their return appearance, and all I can say to that is, where was Mark Gatiss when Stephen Moffat had both the Daleks and the Silurians redesigned? Cold War also depicts an Ice Warrior removing its armour for the first time within the series, something that the Doctor says is the ultimate disgrace for an Ice Warrior. However, while the episode doesn't feature an entirely unclothed Ice Warrior, it does include shots of clawed hands in scenes that some viewers have compared with Alien, in addition to the reveal of the Ice Warrior's face during the episode's climax. Cold War also reveals that the Ice Warrior armour is a biomechanical shell intended to protect the Ice Warrior from the cold. It's susceptible to temperature fluctuations and can be controlled remotely through sonic technology.
Stast, your action may have been precipitate.
Thank you.
But warranted nonetheless.
The 1967 story The Ice Warriors was set during a future ice age in the year 3000. A scientific team sent to halt the advance of glaciers discovers a spacecraft buried beneath the ice, where it's been for thousands of years together with its crew. The Ice Warriors are revived and attempt to take over the scientific base, but they're defeated by the Second Doctor and their ship destroyed as it tries to take off. They return in the 1969 serial The Seeds of Death, which takes place in the mid-21st century. In this story, the world has grown dependent on the matter transmission system TMAT, which an Ice Warrior strike force intends to exploit so as to conquer Earth. After seizing the TMAT relay on the Moon, they use it to send seeds that are intended to reduce the atmosphere's oxygen, thus resembling the Martian atmosphere and making the Earth hospitable for Martian life. But this plan is also foiled by the Second Doctor and companions Jamie and Zoe, and the invading Martian fleet is sent into an orbit around the Sun. When the Ice Warriors returned in 1972 in The Curse of Peladon, it was decided by the production team to subvert the audience's expectations, featuring them as allies of the Third Doctor rather than the villains. The serial depicts the Ice Warriors as having renounced violence and become members of a galactic federation that, besides Mars, also includes Earth, Alpha Centauri and Arcturus. They'd been sent as members of a delegation to negotiate for the planet Peladon to join the Federation, where the Third Doctor encounters them after he and his companion Jo are mistaken for the delegates from Earth. The Doctor initially suspects that the Ice Warriors are behind an attempt to sabotage the proceedings, however he accepts that they've changed when they save his life. With the help of the Ice Warriors, the Doctor then uncovers a plot by High Priest Hepesh and the delegation from Arcturus, a world which is an old enemy of Mars, each with their own motives to prevent Peladon's admission to the Federation. A sequel, The Monster of Peladon, aired in 1974 and was set 50 years after the events of Curse of Peladon. Here the Ice Warriors are depicted as serving as Federation peacekeeping troops. An Ice Lord, however, leader of his force, was working with Galaxy 5, which was at war with the Federation. Seeking a return to the race's warrior past, he tried to impose martial law and take over Peladon, but was stopped by the Peladonians, once again aided by the Third Doctor. As popular recurring monsters, the Ice Warriors have appeared in flashbacks and been referred to throughout the series' history. During the Second Doctor's trial during the War Games, he lists the Ice Warriors as among many threats he's defeated around the universe. During the Third Doctor serial The Mind of Evil, when forced to confront his fears by the Keller machine, the Doctor sees images of his past enemies, including those of the Ice Warriors. The newly regenerated Fifth Doctor, during a moment of initial instability, makes mention of the Ice Warriors and the Brigadier in the 1981 serial Castrovalva. This has been seen as perhaps alluding to an unseen adventure. When confronted by an alien sentient water in the 2009 episode The Waters of Mars, the 10th Doctor theorises that the Ice Warriors froze it in an underground glacier to prevent its escape, referring to them as a fine and noble race who built an empire out of snow. The 2013 episode Cold War is the first to depict the Ice Warriors in the revived series and features the 11th Doctor encountering Grand Marshal Skaldak, a legendary warrior who'd been trapped in the ice for 5,000 years on a sunken Soviet submarine. It's also the first televised story to depict an Ice Warrior without its armour. After Skaldak escapes from the ice, the crew manage to subdue him, which under Martian law he believes is a declaration of war by humanity. After failing to communicate with his fleet for rescue or reinforcements, Skaldak leaves his armour and tears apart crew members to forensically study the weaknesses of human autonomy. One crew member, Stepashin, reveals to Skaldak that the submarine is armed with nuclear missiles that could easily destroy the planet. Upon returning to his armour, Skaldak prepares to fire the missiles. However, he relents and is rescued by an Ice Warrior spaceship that pulls the submarine through the ice to the surface. Before the spaceship leaves, Skaldak deactivates the warheads.
I had hoped that a demonstration of our strength would not be necessary.
Target Books released a novelisation of Mission to Magnus in 1990 written by Philip Martin, based on a serial intended for season 23 but scrapped after the series was put on hiatus. This features the Ice Warriors allying themselves with villain Syl and facing the 6th Doctor and Perry. The Ice Warriors intend to move the planet Magnus Epsilon away from the Sun, shifting it into a perpetual winter and turning it into their new home planet. After the Ice Warriors abandon Syl as unnecessary to the completion of their plans, he offers to help the Doctor defeat them. The Ice Warriors are ultimately destroyed when Magnus Epsilon returns to its original orbit. After the cancellation of Doctor Who in 1989, Virgin Publishing secured a license to publish original Doctor Who fiction continuing the adventures of the 7th Doctor. The Ice Warriors make several appearances in the New Virgin Adventures. The 1992 Ben Aronovich novel Transit is set after a war between humanity and the Ice Warriors called the Thousand-Day War, and depicts a war veteran, Old Sam, making a gesture of peace at the novel's conclusion. Craig Hinton's 1996 novel God Engine follows on from this, depicting humans and Ice Warriors entering a new era of cooperation after the defeat of a faction allied with the Daleks who had recently invaded Earth. This novel also explores the influence of the Osirans on Martian culture. The subject of God Engine in particular is shown as an Ice Warrior creation using Osiran technology, with the Daleks intending on replacing Earth's magnetic core with the God Engine after an Ice Warrior faction has completed it. Legacy by Gary Russell, released in 1994, is a sequel to the Peladon series. It features the Doctor and Ice Warriors dispatched by the Galactic Federation to find a murderer hiding himself in the crowds of a Peladonian ceremony. The novel depicts a strained relationship between the Doctor and the Ice Warriors. He remains suspicious of their motives, and the Lord Savar is irritated by this suspicion. After the Doctor is implicated in murder, Savar asks to personally execute the Doctor so as to avenge previous Ice Warrior defeats. The two manage to reconcile and work together to defeat the real killer. Savar was among a group of Ice Warriors who then later attended Bernice Summerfield's wedding in the 1996 novel Happy Endings by Paul Cornell. The Dying Days depicts the 8th Doctor preventing an Ice Warrior invasion in 1997 with the aid of the Brigadier and Bernice Summerfield. The novel reveals that after the Mars probe missions depicted in the 1970 series The Ambassadors of Death, Earth made inadvertent hostile contact with the Ice Warriors, which was covered up by British intelligence services. Lord Greyhaven, the minister in charge of the novel's missions to Mars, has been in contact with the Ice Warriors and aids in their takeover of the United Kingdom. Greyhaven, however, is killed by the Ice Warriors after rethinking his actions and wiping out the Aja Ice Warrior clan. The invasion attempt is ultimately defeated by the military. In the Big Finish audio drama Red Dawn, NASA's first manned mission to Mars encounters a small band of surviving Ice Warriors who'd been placed in suspended animation to defend the tomb of Isdal, the greatest warrior of the Martian race. According to this story, previous unmanned Mars probes had brought back fragments of alien technology and DNA, and scientists had gone as far as to create human-Martian hybrid clones. This story, set in the 21st century, appears to depict the first full contact between humans and Ice Warriors. This is difficult to reconcile with The Dying Days, and many support the idea that the novels and audios take place in separate parallel universes. Another audio play, Frozen Time, sees the 7th Doctor and a human expedition discovering a group of Ice Warriors frozen in the Antarctic. These are revealed to be criminals deliberately imprisoned there as punishment. Also, The Bride of Peladon saw the 5th Doctor, Peri and Erimem encountering an Ice Warrior. The Ice Warriors made an appearance in the Bernice Summerfield audio The Dance of the Dead, and the new gardener on the Braxtial collection is an Ice Warrior named Hass. The 5th Doctor meets the Ice Warriors yet again in the audio play The Judgment of Iskar. This serves as a sort of origin story for them. The Doctor lands on Mars looking for a segment to the key to time. At this point, Martians are a peaceful communal community who do not even know the meaning of the word warrior. But when the segment is taken away, the Martian atmosphere slowly erodes. They become desperate scavengers and eventually Ice Warriors. In Demos and the Resurrection of Mars, it's explained that many Ice Warriors went into cryogenic suspension after Mars was rendered inhospitable. Some of these vaults were on the Martian moon Deimos, and others were on the asteroid belt. Centuries later, some of these Ice Warriors were revived and eventually discovered a new home world. The planet was a peaceful, beautiful, civilized utopia called Halcyon. The Ice Warriors killed all of the 20 billion inhabitants and renamed it the New Mars.
Oh, goodbye, my dear chap. I must say I've had the time of my lives.
And that's all for this week. As always, my thanks for tuning in to the show. And if you're an iTunes subscriber, I wonder if you'd be kind enough to give the show a rating on there, and perhaps even leave a review too. Don't forget you can leave your feedback on Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast on Facebook, or you can email the show at respectthething@hotmail.com. Perhaps you'd like to leave some audio feedback too. Email respectthething@hotmail.com and I'll try my best to get it into the show. Next week I'll be picking up on the show that, for reasons best known in the Time Vortex alone, got dropped a couple of weeks back, and I'll be looking at The Wirren.
Dawn was near. No one knew why it always has been forgotten, but that was the way it used to be. The way of nature. The way it had to be.
Thank you for listening to Theta Sigma's Doctor Who podcast. Doctor Who and its associated shows are all copyright and property of the BBC, and no infringement is intended.